First up, you guys probably have seen this if you're paying attention to this stuff, but this kind of crazy, insane moment on CNN between Mehdi Hasan, who for some reason has blocked me on Twitter, and conservative commentator Ryan Gorudsky. Is that how you pronounce his name? Gorudsky. All right, let's take a look at that.
If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing.
You're called
stop
an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people would sit there and no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians. I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die?
You should not.
No,
did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. I said, no, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just say I should be killed on live TV?
I said I hope you
don't. Let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
Because you said I'm a big supporter
of the Palestinians.
Of Hamas.
Guys, let me
I said Palestinians.
Are you?
Am I what? No, of course I'm not.
Palestinians
I apologize.
Are you a racist, violent person inciting violence against
Ryan,
That's
disgusting. That is completely.
I apologize.
Good job, CNN. Let's have first block say the Muslim guy should be blown up.
I apologize.
On TV.
What does that mean? Completely out of pocket. Is she paying for the rest of the joke? Completely out of line is what I think she means. He was promptly banned from CNN for the joke, which was kind of not surprising. Batya, I don't know. I watch this clip and I get like heart palpitations, and it reminds me why I don't do hits on cable news anymore. It is just ridiculous, and this is a news story. Why is it a news story? Somebody made an offhanded joke, and yeah, it wasn't a good one. It seemed like a rather odd placement for the joke. What do you make of the tumult and the upset here in that Abby Phillips came back from that break in gravely intoned that he is no longer on the panel, and we have neutralized this hideous monster, and he will never be on cable television or CNN again. What do you make of this? Bit of an overreaction, maybe?
You know, people are pointing out the hypocrisy here of basically.
Mehdi Hasan's calling him a Nazi.
Mehdi Hasan calling him a Nazi, and everybody who supports Trump, and then Ryan makes a joke that Mehdi supports terrorists, right? That he has a beeper and he hopes it won't go off and kill him and presumably everybody at the table. And then he gets banned. What I think is so interesting about this is I think it's very clear that the other panelists didn't really get the joke. They just felt that somebody had attacked a brown person, you know, on grounds
I'm
of
not sure
terrorism
I get the
or
joke,
whatever.
to be fair.
I think what he was saying is, I hope your pager doesn't go off, meaning like you support Hezbollah so much, you're such a defender of Hamas and Hezbollah that you have one of their pagers, and I hope it doesn't go off and kill you.
Of Hezbollah.
Exactly. It's a joke. I mean, it's a joke. Okay, but I think that they didn't quite you heard everyone go, oh wow, and to me it's like they didn't actually understand it, but they knew that they were supposed to be outraged because their audience would be utterly outraged to see, you know, the Muslim person have a joke at his expense that ties him to terrorism.
Am I right in thinking and remembering that Abby Phillips did a thing to her phone later?
She did two.
She did two, and then she did one while she was on the air,
Mehdi then left as well, and so she wanted to be clear that Mehdi is welcome back anytime, but Ryan is not. And to me, it was just so funny because...
Can Ryan apologize for this and come back?
No, he has been banned. He apologized on the air, by the way. He said, I'm sorry, you know, it was
Mehdi Hasan, in his past, has said things about Jews, gay people, etc., when he was in a bit of an Islamist phase. He has repeatedly apologized for that. I take him at his word that he has moved on in his life and he has grown as a person. I don't suspect that people will, allow an apology from somebody else who made an offhanded joke. I think it's a bad joke. I think it's, inappropriate in its way. But you bring something up. This comes after Mehdi Hasan entered this conversation by flinging the word Nazi around. I couldn't really understand what he was saying because there was so much yelling back and forth, because it's cable news, which is a useless institution these days. But yeah, that thing where you call everybody a Nazi, you're calling somebody then effectively a genocidal anti-Semite who wants to expand the borders of your country violently. That's what Nazism is, right? So why is that okay? I don't think it's okay, honestly, to call a guest like you're a terrorist. I mean, that's just a shitty thing to say. I don't like Mehdi Hasan. As I mentioned, he did block me, so I don't know why he did, but he blocked me on Twitter, and I'm sure he doesn't like me. But, keep some sense of decorum. But I do think that you're right about this, that the decorum is kind of unidirectional. there's a lot of decorum that other people don't really care much about. And it's allowed to go off and nobody really...
Right, and that's the sort of hypocrisy here is like they called, Trump supporters Nazis because obviously there's a racial component to that allegation, but if you said to them, no, if you said to them, well, that's racist, they would say, no, we call them Nazis because of what they say. So then Ryan, in a joke, accused Mehdi of supporting terrorists, right? Yes. And then suddenly, no, it's not because he has, defended the Palestinian line to the extent that someone could say he's defending Hamas. It's because of the racial thing, right? Yeah. So they want to kind of have it both ways.
I think the fainting couch, God, there are people collapsing all over this fainting couch. We need like a king-size fainting couch after, Tony Hinchcliffe and all this stuff. Everyone's losing their minds. All right, at the Washington Post, where everyone has been losing their minds for, 5 days now? The Washington Post's decision that was pushed by Jeff Bezos to not endorse either candidate in 2024 has led to an enormous outcry from their Democracy Dies in Darkness staff and readers. They have lost over 200,000 subscribers. I think that is actually more now. I think it was 250,000. That is an insane number of people that have
I didn't know they had that many subscribers.
Well, the LA Times... there was a big upset about the LA Times not endorsing for the first time. And then, by the way, it turns out, nobody's pointed this out, but it turns out that the owner's daughter said, well, yes, it was because Kamala Harris supports the genocide of the Palestinians. And I was like, oh, that's different. Everyone's kind of quiet now. But a bunch of people quit. There was somebody over at the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin, who was saying, well, why haven't you quit? This was before the Washington Post scandal. Yelling at people at the LA Times. Quit! You gotta quit. This is the moral thing to do. Her paper does the same thing. Guess who's still working at the Washington Post who hasn't quit? I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna kick it to you. I wanna see what you think of this editorial. I read this Jeff Bezos thing, and I was kind of impressed by it. I thought it was pretty good. The one thing about it that I don't think anyone noticed was that when they had somebody that took over the newsroom, and who was this British import, and there was all this kind of revolution in the newsroom. What is happening? Why are you firing these people that we love? And this British guy who comes in and at some point says, no one is reading your stuff. Right. Like, we're hemorrhaging readers, and you're talking about we have to keep the person I like as the person on top of this newsroom. No, they don't trust you. That's what Jeff Bezos then says after this. He writes an editorial for the paper that he owns and says, guys, the trust in journalism has always been around Congress, a little above Congress. It is now below Congress. Yeah. People trust journalists is it 8%, 9%, 11%? Something that is actually shocking. And he says, look, I don't want to endorse someone, not because I'm trying to curry favor. It's just people tend to think that we're on the other side. And I don't want to give that impression. So I think he's right about this because nobody has ever been sitting on the fence about to pull that lever and said, Jesus Christ, I'm going to Washington Post things. Grabs the paper and is like, oh, yeah, yes, I'm now going to vote for Kamala Harris. No one fucking cares what they think. No one has cared what they have thought for years. It is the enormous heads of journalists that think that, we have to fact check this because America will collapse into a puddle of misinformation. It's like, no one's watching you. No one's reading your stuff, and no one is especially reading the editorial page in their endorsement. It hasn't moved anyone. It's an institution from a bygone era, and it doesn't need to be, and everyone should chill the fuck out. Sorry for swearing so much.
So I agree with you. I thought what he wrote was great. I wasn't so on board with him writing it, though. I mean, I'm very curious what you make of this. Like, yes, the Washington Post, along with LA Times and the New York Times and all of the mainstream liberal media have beclowned themselves. And I wrote a whole book about this. Bad news. Pick it up if it's
very
of
good
interest.
Book,
Thank you.
Book a lot, yeah.
About how the wokeness is a reflection of the class issues. The people who work at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. These are people who went to elite Ivy League schools. They're totally out of touch with average Americans. They would die before they would, break bread with the Trump voter. It's all true. And, the media has only itself to blame for the fact that it's lost all this credibility. However, and I don't know if I've just been spoiled at the places that I've worked, but the idea of the owner stepping into editorial and saying, this is what we're going to do, we're going to endorse or we're not going to endorse, this is what I want to see in the pages or not. I mean, that does not feel right to me. I mean, I don't know if that's because I've been spoiled, but that should be an editorial decision. And So is he now going to be like the editor-in-chief, basically, of the Washington Post? Is that the idea, that the owner now gets to say? I just felt very conflicted about it, because on the one hand, it's also so ironic, right? The media, along with President Obama and George Clooney and Nancy Pelosi, orchestrated this coup against Joe Biden to get Kamala Harris elected, and 3 months later realized, like, actually nobody's going to vote for her, right?
Correct,
So we can't even endorse this person who we pushed so hard. So there's a little bit of just desserts here, but I don't know, where are you on, like, the owner of a company stepping in and saying, this is the direction I want editorial to take?
So there's two things here. One is that you have somebody that's in the newsroom, and I don't know what is true here, who said before Bezos came out and wrote this piece that it was my decision. Somebody in there said that. And then Bezos kind of indicates in this piece that it was his decision. So we don't know. I mean, we're getting back to a period where you feel like William Randolph Hearst and people who are the big owners of media organizations that thumb the scale because they want to own media organizations because they want to own the debate. I don't think that's the case here with the Washington Post. What annoys me about this, though, is should Jeff Bezos have some influence over the direction of the company that he owns and puts a lot of money into? In 2023, the last number that I saw was the Washington Post was on track to lose $100 million, maybe more than that, but $100 million. And it is kind of funny that you have these people in high dudgeon saying, how dare he say this? It's like, he should just fund me and fund our
sinking
ship. We're losing money. And look, I think the Washington Post has some very, very good work. They have a lot of great journalists over there, and I would be very upset if it went away. I don't want it to. I mean, we criticize these people, but we read them.
We want them to succeed. We want the New York Times to be good. We want it not to be terrible.
Yes, and I have a lot of people at the New York Times, and I see their byline. I really love them, and I think they do great work. But when someone is putting money into something, and there is a kind of egalitarian idea here, right? Well, he has so much. Who cares if he loses $100 million? And when he steps in and says, well, that's what they've lost, right? They've put a lot of money into this enterprise. He's done an incredible thing by all those subscriptions, of integrating it with Amazon. You can subscribe on Amazon. They've done a really good job at doing the digital stuff. That was because of Jeff Bezos and Amazon. They put a lot of money into this and made that a better institution in a lot of ways. And when he comes in and says, I don't want to endorse, not saying, by the way, that we're giving her too easy of a ride, that we're giving Donald Trump too tough of a ride. We need to change that. Just this one thing, the act of an endorsement, I don't like. And people going on, like Robert Kagan going on to television, he was on, I think, CNN, saying, well, I don't have any evidence, because Aaron Burnett pushes back and says, do you have any evidence? He's a guy from, in case you don't know him, from the Washington Post. He's a columnist who resigned over this. And he said, I have no evidence that he's trying to curry favor with Donald Trump in the eventuality of a Donald Trump victory. But, and then you listen to him, he's like, he's very sure about it. It's like, we don't know that that's the case. These are people quitting their jobs based on what? Well, this endorsement, we should endorse. It is the biggest, and it shows one other big thing for me. It shows the inflation of the egos, how important they think their job is relative to everybody else in the world. They are the ones that are controlling. Democracy dies in darkness, and they're the one that is turning the light on. That's essentially what they're saying, right? And without us, like, I agree, without them, we'd be a poorer place, information-wise, reporting-wise. But this idea
not quite darkness, but
not quite darkness. It'd be a little dim,
a little dimmer.
A little dimmer. This would be pretty bright out, actually. Just slightly put that dimmer. But I would say it's like they are like their estimation of their power and their influence is always amazingly overwrought and amazingly. It drives me crazy. So anyway, that's our show. And I'm done ranting. Do you want to see me rant more? Send me a text. I'll just give you a call and I can rant. I can keep going all day. But I want to thank Franny Block, the great Franny Block, who will be back again with us, and Jay Solomon for joining us. I mean, they're both Free Press columnists and reporters. And thanks to all of you for tuning in.